Hi there, I'm Dr. Gila, and I have another interview this week that I really think you're going to love. There's a big variety in people's experiences as single parents, but one thing that I think is pretty common, if not universal, is that at some point in some way, maybe even today, each single parent has wondered, does the fact that my child is being raised in a single parent home mean that they are screwed? And part of that question comes back to relationships. Is it possible to cultivate secure attachments in a single parent home? And is your child screwed if they have attachments that aren't secure and healthy with another parent, or if they don't have another parent in the picture at all? So these are extremely common fears and worries. And that's why I thought that I would share with you an interview that I did. This was also part of the Single Parenting Summit that I did in February. It's an interview with Aurisha Smolarski. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified co-parenting coach, a mediator, and a mom herself. She has a clinical practice in Los Angeles, California, and she is the award-winning author of Cooperative Co-Parenting for Secure Kids, the Attachment Theory Guide to Raising Kids in Two Homes. So, what better person to ask these questions? I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope that it is reassuring and puts your mind at ease just a little bit. Enjoy. Welcome to Single Parenting with Connection, Not Perfection, the podcast that honors your messy reality. It's the support you crave without the usual emotional landmines. I'm your host, Dr. Gila, and I promise I will never tell you to just tag your partner in. Before we start, quick reminder. While I am a licensed psychologist and a certified coach, this podcast is not coaching and it's not therapy, and it's not a replacement for medical or psychological advice. It is for educational and informational purposes only. All right, let's dive in. I'm here with Aurisha Smolarski. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So secure attachment, kind of a buzzword. We've heard it, thrown around. Can you give people like the Cliff Notes version? What is secure attachment? What does it look like?
Okay. So attachment in general is about the relationship between the parent and the child. So a child has an instinctual drive to seek proximity, attunement, connection, protection from a caregiver, especially when they are experiencing any kind of distress. So that could be when they're afraid, or if they are separated from their parent for a moment, if they are meeting a new person, if they're upset or angry, any kind of distress, the child is going to seek, send out distress signals to their parent. And depending on how reliable and consistent and available that parent is to meet the child's needs, the child is going to learn, I am safe and secure, and I can count on my parent. Now, if the parent doesn't and instead meets the child with aggression or with hostility or shame, or is not available, meaning more neglectful, that child is going to learn, I can't count on my parent. They're inconsistent or they're not reliable. And they're going to start to adapt and create adaptive strategies to meet their own needs. That child then can develop a more insecure attachment style. So the key to security is about being present, being available, being connected, and responding to your child in an appropriate amount of time with sensitivity and attunement. And so it isn't about always being perfect, as you like to say. I'm 100% on board. For me, the idea is about repair and connecting and repairing that interpersonal bridge when there may be some ruptures. So, insecurity happens, or those attachment ruptures or attachment traumas happen when it is ongoing over time. If there's a day-to-day little moment, it's normal. I know I experience this. I don't know one parent who doesn't, who gets upset or is frustrated or is stressed, and you may respond to your child, with a little snap, or you can't immediately, you can't be there as soon as you want to because let's say you have to work late. As long as you repair it and the child then regains confidence in that connection, then they regain that sense of security that their needs will be met. So,
Yeah.
I hope that was good enough in a nutshell to give
Yeah.
people a sense of like security. Secure attachment is about that relationship that you create. And
Yeah.
one other thing I want to mention that I think is so important, especially for single parents, is that it takes one caregiver to create a secure child. A
Mm.
child needs one caregiver to feel safe and secure and to be able to internalize that so they can take that out into the world with them with confidence and self-esteem.
Yeah. And I know that is such a big concern for so many single
Mm-hmm.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
Is my child screwed, to be honest, right?
No.
Is my child screwed if they only have me as their primary secure attachment figure? And I think it's so reassuring to hear and to rehear and to be
Mm-hmm.
reminded that you are enough
Mm-hmm.
and that your connection with your child is so powerful and
Mm-hmm.
impactful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because they learn relationship and how they interact with the world and other people through that caregiver interaction, through that bond that they
Mm-hmm.
have with their primary caregiver.
Yeah.
And so if you, the primary caregiver, the only caregiver, let's say, really form that secure attachment, that child is going to innately know that they can expect to get their needs met. They're going to know that they are secure, that they are valued, that they are loved, and they take that confidence with them
Mm.
into the world, and then they will create other attachment figures with other, attachment relationships with other people, such as a
Yeah.
teacher or another family member, right? So a child can have different attachment figures that aren't always the parent. And that
Mm.
also is really good. And I talk a lot about community in my book because I'm a big fan of community. And there's a lot of research that shows that community does create a sense of belonging. And so a child is going to have that primary attachment with their parent, but they will also create other bonds and relationships with other people. And if they know what security feels like, they're going to also be able to create other healthier relationships with other people, with their peers, with their, if they have a sibling, no, but with their like grandparent or with an aunt or
Mm.
uncle, or with a teacher, and they're going to know what that feels like.
Yeah, they have that frame of reference and the model. They know what it looks like, what it feels like, and also in some ways how to cultivate it, right? Like I love what you said. Of course, I love what you said about not having to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I often like to say perfection in parenting is not only not realistic, it's not desirable
Right.
because we need to and get to model for our kids that imperfection, making mistakes is
Right.
expected. It's normal, quote unquote. And we get to model that repair process that you
Yes.
mentioned. And that repair process, it sounds like, is in itself so important for building that secure attachment, right?
Yes.
So it's really an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for deepening that attachment.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
is really that balance between rupture and repair. And the faster you can move into repair,
Mm-hmm.
then the child can get back to, okay, cool. My
Yeah.
parent is here. I'm good. I'm safe. I can rely on them and get back to playing and learning and growing.
Yeah.
So in a way, and they learn a valuable skill that they too can be imperfect because perfection, I talked to my kid about this. Perfection doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If we're perfect, then already that comes from an insecure place. I need to be
Mm.
perfect in order to be loved. So if the child can see that their parent is modeling imperfection and repairs, then they know too that they can be imperfect and they are learning the process of repair. So they can either repair with their peers later on. And that is one of the most valuable skills of relationship, of interacting with anybody, is to be able to repair, be able to acknowledge where, you might have misstepped or made a mistake and that you're growing and learning and what you're doing to change so it doesn't happen again. Right. And that
Yeah.
they're going to take with them into their lives and thrive in all of their relationships. So to be perfect doesn't help your child. To be imperfect and repair is what your child needs. And that's what builds resiliency, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I talk about this a lot, especially in terms of a divorce, right? A lot of parents are afraid, I'm going to hurt my child. I know that was my biggest fear. Like,
Yeah.
how is my child going to survive? There's so much trauma. There's so much negative, shame-based, failure-based narratives out there. But when I went through it, I realized it doesn't have to be that way, actually. If we create these secure foundations, safe havens in our home, and if the other parent does the best they can do, at least what we do at our home, we can create that security within the child, between us and the relationship, and that secure base that children actually need to be able to handle conflict, to be able to handle challenges and
Mm-hmm.
changes in their lives. They take that with them. And
Yeah.
that, I feel like, is true resiliency. It's not about the perfect family, which whatever that means. Honestly,
Right.
I'm done with that idea too, of like the narrative of, the two parent heteronormative structure that, children need two parents at home in order to thrive. That is absolutely not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Right. And what does perfect even mean in terms of like a family or a parent or a person? Yeah. I think a lot of parents are probably, and yes, I want to echo what you said about resilience, right? I mean, to build resilience, you need adversity, right?
right.
We need to have these opportunities to build the skills of resilience. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what that repair and authentic repair, right?
Yes.
Like not just saying, I'm sorry, but the authentic repair and the reconnection is so
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
So
So,
what sorry, I just wanted to add like what that means, right? So if I was a
yeah.
listener, I'm like, well, what does that mean? And so it's foundation is about connection, but about
Mhm.
really attuning to your child,
Yeah.
right? And attuning to yourself too. Like, oh gosh, I just like yelled, I'm feeling frustrated and overwhelmed. Taking a breath, you got to put on your safety hat first before you go to your child, and you then connect with them. What is happening with my child? I wonder how that was for them. Okay, so, and then you can bring your attention and your presence back to your child, more regulated, and connect with them. Like,
Mhm.
that was kind of scary when I snapped at you. I'm so sorry. I'm
Mhm.
going, I had a stressful day and you just wanted a hug and I wasn't available when you needed me. I'm here now.
Hmm.
And so in that quick moment of repair, you're owning your own stuff, you're seeing your child, you're validating. Of course you need a hug. I haven't seen you all day. I love you too. I want to hug you as well. Then that interpersonal bridge gets reconnected and the child, then their system regulates because
Yeah.
they feel seen, heard, and understood and validated in their experience. And then the hug reconnects and repairs. Done.
Yeah.
It takes a minute.
Yeah. And so powerful. Yeah. I love it. Dr. Gila here. I'm just interrupting this conversation to let you know I have a blog post on my website, and it's all about modeling the art of apology and repair, what to say, what not to say, and why it matters. And I thought I'd pop in here with that because it is so relevant to this conversation that I'm having with Aurisha. If you want this sent right to your inbox, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I'll send it right to you. Otherwise, you can always find it on my website. Go to singleparentingwithconnection.com and you can find it on the blog. All right, now back to the conversation. You mentioned a minute ago the idea of having another, an ex, another attachment figure in the child's life.
Right.
And I know a lot of parents are worried, well, I can do my part to build a
Right.
secure attachment. What if my ex really doesn't do the things required to foster a secure attachment with my child? How worried should I be, right? Is this going to screw up my child? What do I do? How do I counter that?
Yeah. That is the number one question I get as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to change your co-parent or to make them be somebody they are not. But you can do everything in your ability, and you're building your own self-awareness to create that secure attachment with your child. And you can help your child make sense of the differences. You
Hmm.
can help them learn how to advocate for themselves. You can help them build a language and a vocabulary of feelings and needs, and feel really seen and valued within themselves, that they then can see that they may not be getting that from the other parent, but because they've built that confidence because of you, you're the secure parent,
Hmm.
they will be more apt at being able to handle a more insecure relationship with that parent.
Hmm.
And so a child will and does and can, and it's okay, have different attachment relationships with different people. The hope is that they have one, at least secure one. And they're
Yeah.
going to understand the differences, right? And feel the differences. This one doesn't feel as safe. This one is more inconsistent. I have to learn, some kids, unfortunately, maybe learn to caretake one parent so that the parent can be less volatile or more present, or, you know, um, less shamey, right? So they will take on some of that. Like, this is what I have to do in response to somebody who's like that. But if they have that security with one parent, they will feel the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, right, the only behavior we can control is our own,
Yes,
which is both extremely frustrating and also, I think, empowering, right? There's the piece that we can't control someone else's behavior, and that's really, really hard. And we can control our own behavior, and that is really empowering. There are things that we can do to affect our child's upbringing and attachments. And, I was wondering, not that I would wish this on a child as a
mm-hmm.
positive experience, but I do wonder if there is something to them having both experiences and then being better able
Yes,
to recognize, ah, this doesn't feel good.
right,
This is not healthy.
right,
And so this is not what I want in my other relationships. It's not how I want to show up in
exactly.
relationships, right? So they have that model. Do you find that?
So I think that's the key of like talking to them and helping them make sense of their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important, is if you have a secure and safe relationship with your child, as they grow and develop, you can start to have those dialogues. You can teach them what healthy boundaries are, how to stand up for themselves, and how to, and it's also value-based teaching. So they're going to learn and build flexibility, like what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, 100%, because the real world out there is full of people who they're going to, interact with, that have a complete spectrum of different attachment qualities, and so they're
Right.
not always going to meet with people who are secure. They're going to meet up with people who show them lots of different insecurities. And so you can use that instead of being fearful of it. And I 100% agree. Use it as an opportunity to teach, to model what healthy relationships are about. So modeling and teaching and building critical thinking skills for your child and teachable
Mm.
moments within their experiences will help them be able to better manage that and take it into their future with them
Yeah.
in a more adaptable way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I know that it's also a sensitive balance to find because we don't want to badmouth the other parent, right? We don't want to triangulate,
Mm-hmm.
put the kid sort of in the middle where they feel like they have to choose. And yet we want to reflect back to them what they're
Right.
experiencing. And do you have any tips on how to like straddle that fine line?
Yeah. So I like to say, like, pluck them out of the middle, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if a parent is bad mouthing or saying negative things or is very self oriented, if you were to talk to your child about their behavior, the other parent's behavior, that puts them in the middle. So instead, what you want to do is talk to them about their feelings, the child's feelings. So how
Mm-hmm.
is it for you? What was that like when, your other parent said that? Yeah, I get that must have been very confusing for you, or you didn't know what that meant. So
Mm-hmm.
you really try to connect with them and validate their experiences and their feelings So now you're back to, it's about the child.
Mm.
Stay neutral. You never want to say anything negative about the other parent. That is modeling. You're
Hmm.
modeling healthy communication. You're modeling that you don't say anything negative. And the child's going to be like, oh, that feels much better, right?
Yeah.
They're just, by what we do, a child is going to learn, not
Hmm.
necessarily even what we say.
Hmm.
And then really, as you reassure them that, you're not going to fight through them, that their experience makes sense, that's going to help them again regulate and feel safe and secure with you.
Yeah.
And you can clarify your values. That's what I was saying before, is move it away from the other parent, what the other parent said or did, and more to what you want to teach them, the values that you want to uphold in your household. So now
Hmm.
you're now moving away even further from the other parent, and you're bringing it back to, how do I want to raise my kid?
Yeah.
And in what way? And then the kid is going to move and feel secure and like, okay, this is, thank you, right? They won't say thank you,
Yeah.
but they'll feel it. Like they'll feel that security, that calmness, that reconnection, and understand, like, why did I feel uncomfortable? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then teaching healthy boundaries. As the child gets older, you will want to teach them, like, your feelings matter. It is important that you get seen and heard. And sometimes some people aren't able to do that, and you move away from the other parent, maybe you talk about it as a friend. Have you ever had a friend who you had a fight with, or who said something mean about another friend? How did that make you feel? Right.
Mm.
And so then you can teach them to honor their own feelings, even if they don't say it out loud,
Hmm.
but to stay present with their own feelings and to know that their feelings matter, that their feelings are, deserve to be seen and heard. And some people you can say it out loud, and some people you can't, but it doesn't mean that their feelings and their needs aren't valuable, right? So you
Yeah.
can start to teach them that inner language
Hmm.
so that they can validate themselves and learn to hold appropriate boundaries.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I also want to add, there are some things that we can also acknowledge for our kids, that different people have different ways of doing things. Now, this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go for like abuse. We don't want to condone that, but that we have different beliefs, different
Yes,
perspectives, different ways of moving through the world. And it's okay for them to have exposure to those, and to make their own decisions about what does feel good, and how do I want to
absolutely.
navigate that.
It's
Yeah.
100% right. And that's where that, like, looking at, values is like, some people have values that are, or operate, or, like to maneuver the world in this way. And this is the way that I like to do it. What do you think? Right. That's that
Right.
development of the critical thinking
Hmm.
as the child develops. And so they're going to take in different experiences. And that, again, the silver lining that I talk about, that also helps the child grow and develop and have, like, expansiveness of experiences.
Hmm.
If we give our child a perfect life and everybody's great, it can feel like, relief,
Hmm.
but also we can help to nurture, that the full spectrum through those different kind of challenging experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I have so many follow-up questions, but we're running out of time. This is such a great topic. And I want to say, if you're listening and you're thinking, okay, this sounds great, but it's really hard in practice, right? I hear you, and absolutely, that is true. That is valid. You are not alone in that.
Yes.
This is nuanced stuff, and it's challenging, especially when your ex or whoever the other person is really triggering for you. It
Mm-hmm.
can be hard to stay in that place of really
Mm-hmm.
showing up for your child in a non-judgmental and non-critical way about the other person. So very valid if that's hard for you.
Yeah, and that's why, it's important to have community, to talk to other people, a
Yeah.
therapist, a coach, a good friend that you can vent to. Like, you need places to put those feelings.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want it to be your child, because that creates insecurity, because then your child becomes your confidant, or they
Yeah.
become put in the middle, or they feel stuck, they have to choose between parents, and that is what causes harm. And so, build your community around you
Mm-hmm.
and connect with others, get your support, because you absolutely need that, and your feelings are valid, and it is so hard. It is, for anyone who is co-parenting or single parenting. I'm a co-parent, and I didn't know it until I became one. It's a unique relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
it is, I would say, probably one of the hardest. and complicated ones. And so
Yeah.
to sit with yourself right now and give yourself compassion of like, this is hard and you're doing, the best you can. And that's enough,
Yeah.
and just creating that consistency of connection with your child every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, is all it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't have to be present, 24 hours a day. We can't. But that 10 minutes of uninterrupted child-centered connection time will help the child feel seen. It'll help them feel like, that you delight in them. They'll see the sparkle in your eye. That's going to tell them you love them, regardless of what they do and what they say and how they act. They just feel that love unconditionally from you. So if that's what you have capacity to do every day, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I often think the world would be such a better place if everyone felt seen and heard and valued by one person. One person. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good stuff. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I know you have a free resource if folks want to, do you want to tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So on my website, I have a downloadable free communication style quiz, which is based in attachment theory. So based on your attachment style, we develop different communication styles. And so I have created just a little quiz for you to get a sense of what your style is, and some tips on how to shift and change that depending on what your style is and what your co-parent style is, so that you can hopefully move towards more secure communication with each other to minimize conflict and confusion, which will be good for your kid because your kids want you guys to work together as best as possible.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And before we go, I know we've been talking a lot about connection and imperfection this whole time, but I'm asking each speaker, is there someplace in your life, something that you do that really fosters connection, either with yourself or with your kiddo?
So I think it's important to do both.
Mm-hmm.
So since we started divorcing, I made sure, especially on transition days when it's a little bit more inconsistent for the child, is really create consistency. So for my child, I like to, when she comes home, just have downtime with her. She tends towards being an introvert, so we do quiet stuff together. But when she was little, we used to wrestle, and that was awesome. And that would get out the anxieties or whatever. So that was huge. So she's physical as well as introverted. So depending on what she's needing, like I'll check, attune to her in the moment. And so either we'll do something physical. I like to give her big squeeze hugs. She loves that. Or sometimes we just, sit together, read together, or do like an activity together. So that's how I connect with her. And then connecting to myself, I probably should do a little better job of that. But trying to take walks every day without listening to anything and just being in the present with what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm smelling, the five senses. I go through that. And that's a very quick, and also it's exercise that brings me back to my body and out of the stress of the day. And so that's something I try to do at least a couple times a week, and it really grounds me.
Yeah, I love it. And I think we could all work on more connecting with ourselves. So that's very relatable.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm asking speakers is there a place in your life that you've really embraced imperfection? And I know we've talked a little about that today, but is there something that comes to mind for you in your own life where you've embraced imperfection?
Parenting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're talking about it here, but so I don't know if I can just use the same one, but as a therapist, we're supposed to know all the answers.
No, we're not.
But that's what one thinks. I know we're not. Or the fact that even I got divorced, right? I had to embrace the fact that as a relationship therapist, that was my expertise. I keep people together. I help people be in great marriages. Yes. And I had to embrace imperfection in my own experience of moving from a romantic relationship and realizing that wasn't going to continue, right? So as a
Yeah.
therapist, I had these ideas that I should know the answers. I should know how to, keep my relationship together because that's what I do for clients. And yet it wasn't working. And
Mm.
so I had to, instead of holding on to a relationship that actually wasn't healthy, I had to embrace that this wasn't a failure, that instead it was a change. And that, I think, was the biggest learning experience that I had in my whole life. That it wasn't about being whatever this perfect family was, but it was about, how do I do this in such a way that actually can build resiliency, right? Can
Hmm.
actually move us through in an adaptive way. And so I think I had to really embrace that imperfection of not being whatever the perfect therapist or the perfect mom or the perfect partner, and instead, like, what can I do to actually focus on what's most important
Yeah.
and creating, healthy relationships. And I feel like, through a lot of research and through a lot of therapy and a lot of work, I'm continuously working on that, of
Yeah.
embracing the good enough, and
Yeah.
doing that in parenting, in my relationships, in my co-parenting relationship, and even as a therapist. I can't be a perfect therapist, right? So,
No.
constantly repairing. It's constantly about repairing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Bringing imperfection to each role. And
yes,
yeah, it can be so hard when your family structure goes against what society says it should look
right,
like,
right.
right? It can feel like a failure. And so I love what you said. It's not a failure, it's a change.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah.
And
Oh,
that was a big one for me, of embracing that imperfection, is like, okay, change isn't about being perfect. It's about,
mm,
how do I move through this with grace, with ease, with presence, with,
yeah.
connection.
Yeah. And in fact, there's so much beautiful growth that can come from
And
it, which
growth.
is hard to
Mm.
see when you're in the moment, but there's so much beautiful growth on the other side of that change. So, or there can be. Yeah.
I think there is. And I think
Yeah.
that's where we stay stuck in fear and anxiety or in an unhealthy place. It is hard for us to grow. That might mean that we need to grow. We need to move forward into a different, space. And what does that mean? So 100%, I think there is so much value, in healing brings us growth
Yeah.
and empowerment.
Yeah. So true. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to chat with you. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Gila. It was really wonderful speaking with you as well.
That's it for this episode. I am so glad you found your way here. And remember, even if you're on your own, you don't have to do it alone. You've got this.